Some days you got energy and some days you don't. Today, I woke up with all kinds of energy. So let's talk about it. Ba-dum-bum-bum-bum, sound effects, blah, blah. All right. What happened at the Toyota series? It was horrible. That's what happened. There was an ice-covered lake, and the lake was froze over all the way across the Grand Glaze at Park Place. All the way up until the beginning of the tournament. Of course, 2 or 3 days before it started, it opened up in the Glaze and in the main lake up to the dam, to the Gravois. I don't know how far you could go up the river, but there was a lot of the coves iced over. On Monday and Tuesday before the tournament, things started to open up. By Wednesday, a little more opened up. I think on Wednesday you could get up the Glaze, up past the Army Wreck. But anyway, that's not where the bite was going down. I don't know how many fish were caught in the Glaze. I didn't hear a lot of guys talking about having very much success in the Glaze. It mostly happened in the Gravois. Some towards the dam, some of that mid-lake, Buck Creek, Alhana, down to Shawnee Bend. Then seemed like from the toll bridge to PB2 was kind of dead again. I don't really understand why. And a lot of fish were caught in the Niangua. Of course, the Niangua, when you got into it, had a very nice water clarity change that was clear and that good old almost bluish green Niangua tint to it, which I really like that, especially this time of year when the water temps are as cold as they were. So 39 degrees was about the average. I saw water as low as 36, saw water as high as 40. And we were on a warming trend, thank goodness. That helped the thaw out. And fish weren't really in those, they were in areas that you would expect, like secondary points and transition banks, but not on those just good old ditches next to channel swings or very steep, bluffy, rocky points. Even when you would hit the main lake, rocky points, where you would normally catch some Kentuckys or some wintering fish, it just seemed like they weren't there. It's like they were in the back of the pockets. And now that I think about it a little bit more, it's like where the ice was melting. So the ice edges was where a lot of fish were. And if you had a brush pile near there, they would get in the brush, but then they would move, and they'd get in the brush and move. So I think they were following the bait. So the bait was really dying everywhere, but especially on that ice line. So if you got around that ice line, you were around fish. So, but that would make it extremely tough because you've got all those dying shad. And they don't have to go far to get a good meal. And this time of year, their metabolism is so low that it doesn't take much to feed a bass. If you've ever had one in an aquarium or worked at Bass Pro or somewhere where you don't feed them all the time, and they're the same way in the lake, they will gorge themselves when the time is right, but they will just sit there when they're in a negative mood and they have a full belly. They're not feeding. So they weren't chasing baits. They weren't chasing the A-rig. They definitely weren't chasing the jerkbait very good and just not eating overall. So if you were able to catch a few keepers, you were good to go on the co-angler side. If you caught a limit, you were leading it. If you are on the boater side and caught a limit, you were definitely in the top 15. And on day 2, if you could follow that up, you were well within the cut line. Now that's when the tournament got interesting. As Friday's weigh-in happened, you could tell that some people had a better day on Friday. Some people did the same. They either blanked or caught one keeper. It was just really tough again, but I think slightly better. And then on Saturday, it kind of opened up. Of course, that's the top 25 cut. It's people that are doing well in the tournament. And some people gambled. They ran into Niangua again. Some people tried to milk their areas that they had caught fish before. A lot of guys ran to Alhana again, and then a lot of guys looked for springs in that really warm water. I'm assuming up the river a little bit. I'm not sure, but looking for that 40-degree water temp, 41 if you were really, really lucky. And then I don't know how many people got to Hahatonka. That was also a player, I know. And I'm not sure how many people went in there, but if you could get to Hahatonka, I know that played. And there was some people trying to fish the dam area, but I just didn't get a whole lot of good reports. And usually this time of year, historically, the mouth of the Gravois to the dam is kind of where it's going down, but just not a lot of good reports from there. But so all in all, if you were able to catch some fish, you got some great points. Now the next one for the Toyota Series is at Kentucky Lake. The Bass opens at Kentucky Lake right now. It is a tougher tournament than I think a lot of guys expected, but at the same time, it is March. You are in the, I would call that the South. I'll call that Southern fishery. And anytime you're in the South in March, somebody's going to catch them, even if it's crappy weather. If the water's in the mid 40s, and going up, ticking at 46, 47 degrees. I'm not down there. I don't know the exact degrees, but somebody's going to catch them. So on the day one, I saw a lot of, this is interesting, a lot of the Missouri guys that just fished Lake of the Ozarks are doing really well down there. So I don't know if they're doing something completely different, but Andy Newcomb's up in the top. I don't know exact places. Brad Jelinek did real well. Brock did real well. There's some other guys that popped out to me that are doing well that just fished this grinder. And it's interesting that sometimes when you fish a tournament that sucks so bad, it's kind of like baseball or something where you've struck out, or you kind of get in the groove. But all those guys did okay in the Toyota. Well, Andy got second, I don't know. They did well, but I'm just saying it was a very tough tournament. So to grind that out and grind it on pre-practice, practice, the tournament, the days are cold. It's just, and then you get down to where it's just, you just get a little bit of opening. You get that good pitch, and then boom, those guys they're in a groove. They're fishing well, and it shows. So when they get out of Missouri and do really, really well going in other places, and I think that kind of has to do with how tough the fishing is here and how good the guys are here. They're good in themselves, but you get rubbing shoulders with the hammers that live here on Lake of the Ozarks, it will really, really season you. So when you get out of the state, I wouldn't call it easy. It's not easy, but it's definitely a great training ground here. When you get outside, go down to Texas and whack them. Go down to Kentucky Lake and whack them. So kudos to those guys. I hope they do well. Now, crappie have been hit and miss. Crappie have kind of moved around. I tried to crappie fish on Saturday and a little bit on Sunday up the river. So I went up towards the 50 to kind of check some places, and it really was not going for me up there. I think the main lake crappie and the bass even, but the crappie have just not turned on. If you can get in the upper parts of a creek, so upper parts of PB1, upper parts of the Gravois, if you're in the Gravois, the upper parts of Indian, the upper parts where the water is a little bit warmer, I think the fish moved up there to that ice and where the shad were really, really dying, and I think they've stayed there. They figured out that they can stay in the shallower water up the creeks and stay warm. And plus, that's where a lot of shad are. There's shad everywhere, but I think they're more comfortable. So those big, long coves like Party Cove, what's another? Pin Oak. If you're going up the river, go up into Racetrack, or, you know, if you're way up into, I don't know what's going on in like the Pearson and Cartwright and Bollinger. I think those creeks will work too. I just don't think they're turned on quite as much. But this weekend, this morning, it's 46 degrees. That's going to help a lot. You know, we had a little snow come in a few days ago. It got cold. Now it's warmer in the morning, so that's going to help a lot. So the fishing's really going to turn on. It's already okay. So if you find them up there in those upper reaches of the creeks, you can catch them on a cork. You can catch them on a jerkbait. You can catch them on a jig, pitch into them. Lately, they seem like they don't want a bait that's moving. So I think that's why the cork and jig is working so well. Or if you have a very light jig, that you can just kind of kiss them with it. Just kind of barely run it through, and they will eat it, but it's like they won't chase. They won't, you know, you can't throw like a small paddle tail swim bait through there and just reel it in like we were doing 3 or 4 weeks ago. So you got to change it up every day. They get in a different mood. Even schools of crappie that are close together are even in a different mood. So change your colors, change your techniques, be ready for different things. I'm going to go down there with one rod and my jig and my crappie nibbles and fish around the dock, and then find some schools that will eat. I'm not going to spend any time, if they are not chasing, I'm not going to force them to eat. So I'm going to do my thing like I usually do. My old little Hustler tube head jigs on a 1/16 ounce, and probably going, the water clarity's a little bit stained up in the glaze. I'm probably going to break out those purple and chartreuse tail tubes. I'm probably going to go with a little bit more color. I really like to use like a Bobby Garland monkey milk, and then take my chartreuse pen with one side's red and one side's chartreuse. I kind of mark up the baits a little bit. That way I don't have to just bring every color I own. But switch it up. Try some different colors. Try some yellow with some cream and blue fleck. Try a pink head. Switch it up until you catch them. If they quit, switch color again. So you're going to have to be on your toes. But once you figure out what they want, it's lights out right now. So get out there and do that. Hair jigs, hand-tied, marabous, all are working just as good, or sometimes better. So have a lot of things ready to go. It's going to be better and better, as I mentioned. So lots of tournaments. We got Bass World this weekend. We got an Army Rec tournament. You've got Anglers in Action. So tournament season is well underway. So be careful. There is still extremely cold water out there. Be careful. If you get in this lake, it is dangerous. It's dangerous all year. Right now, it is extremely dangerous. So, have boots that you can kick off if you get in the water. Wear your inflatables. Wear your life vest. Even if you're walking up to the dock, like for instance, we might park our boat at the condo and walk up. Leave your inflatable on. If you fall in the water right now, it's a bad situation. So be careful out there. Get some kids out there. If you can find some crappie that you can catch on a cork, that is super fun. Get some kids out there and make sure they keep their life vest on too. But be safe, have fun. I will be at PB2 and Army Rec this weekend. If you guys have any questions, just reach out to me. We'll see you.